Tonight, the sky may look calm, almost empty, as if nothing is happening above you. But calm is only what motion looks like when it is too vast and too steady to be noticed. High overhead, far beyond clouds and aircraft, the Earth is moving through space at tremendous speed, and through that motion, it passes through traces left behind by countless objects that once wandered near the sun. Sometimes, those traces reveal themselves, not loudly, not for long, but as brief lines of light that appear and vanish before certainty can fully settle in. We call them shooting stars, as if they were falling from somewhere above the stars themselves. But nothing is falling in the way the word suggests. What you are seeing is not descent, but collision. Not a star leaving the sky, but a grain of space meeting the thin edge of Earth's atmosphere. For most of their existence, these tiny travelers are invisible. They drift silently through the solar system, cold and dark, carrying no glow and no sign that they are there at all. They do not shine in space. They do not burn. They simply move, following paths shaped long ago by gravity and time. Only when one of them meets Earth does it briefly announce itself, and even then, what you see is not the object alone, but the atmosphere responding to its arrival. The light you notice is created in a fraction of a second, when air is forced to stop moving out of the way. At such speed, the atmosphere behaves less like a gentle blanket and more like a solid wall. Air compresses violently in front of the incoming particle. Temperature rises instantly, energy is released, and the surrounding gas begins to glow. That glow stretches into a line because the object is moving so fast that it lights up a long path instead of a single point. The sky itself becomes part of the display. Most of the time, the visitor is smaller than a grain of sand. Something so small you would lose it between your fingers if you tried to hold it. And yet, speed gives it power. Speed allows something microscopic to write across the sky. This happens far above you, often around 100 kilometers overhead, so high that weather, storms, and clouds play no role at all. The event feels close because it is bright, but it is not. It belongs to a region where Earth transitions into space, where the atmosphere is thin but still capable of responding. By the time your eyes fully register the light, the process is already ending. The object is eroding, vaporizing, and disappearing. Nothing continues to fall afterward. Nothing waits to land. The atmosphere dismantles these visitors completely, shaving them down into vapor and ultrafine dust long before they could ever reach the ground. The show ends high above, leaving nothing visible behind. And yet, this is not a rare interruption. It is part of Earth's daily routine. Our planet is constantly encountering material from space. Most of it arrives quietly, producing no light strong enough to notice. Only when size, speed, and angle align just right does the sky briefly speak. Only then does motion reveal itself to human eyes. Some streaks are subtle, almost delicate. Others are sharp and commanding, cutting across darkness with sudden confidence. But all of them point to the same truth. The universe around Earth is not empty, and it is not still. It is layered with paths, streams, and remnants of earlier journeys. Earth moves through these structures every day, whether anyone is watching or not. When you see a shooting star, you are not witnessing a random accident. You are witnessing a scheduled encounter, one set in motion long before this night arrived. Many of these encounters trace their origins to objects that no longer pass nearby, bodies that once returned again and again to the inner solar system, shedding pieces of themselves each time. Those pieces did not vanish. They stayed where they were released, stretched out along invisible roads carved by gravity. Over centuries and millennia, those roads thickened. They split into strands of different ages and densities, preserving the memory of when and how they were formed. Earth does not chase these paths, it simply crosses them, again and again, on the same dates each year. And when it does, the atmosphere lights up, not because something new has arrived, but because something old has finally been met. In that moment, the distance between past and present collapses. A fragment released long ago finishes its journey in a few seconds of light. This is why watching the sky can feel strangely intimate. You are not only seeing something beautiful, you are intersecting with history, a history written not in words, but in motion. A history that does not announce itself, but waits patiently for Earth to pass through it once more. And as this night continues, the paths above you remain in place, quiet, invisible, and persistent. They will still be there when you look away, and they will be there again when Earth returns to meet them, carrying the past into the present, one brief line of light at a time. Some of the most recognizable encounters happen not by chance, but by repetition. Year after year, Earth returns to the same regions of space, meeting material that has been waiting along its path. One of these encounters carries a long memory. It exists because a comet has been revisiting the inner solar system for thousands of years, following an orbit that brings it close to the Sun again and again. Each time it returns, heat and gravity work together to loosen its surface. Dust, ice, and fragments are released, not in a single burst, but gradually over many passages. Those fragments do not scatter evenly. They spread along the comet's orbit, forming trails that stretch far beyond where the comet itself may be at any given moment. Over time, these trails become layered. Material released centuries apart occupies slightly different paths, creating a complex structure with regions of varying density and age. Earth crosses this structure every November, and when it does, the sky briefly reveals that hidden architecture. Some years, the encounter is gentle. Only a few streaks appear, subtle and easily missed. Other years, Earth passes through denser strands. The result can be sudden bursts of activity, moments when the sky seems unusually alive with motion. These intense displays are not random. They can often be traced to material released during specific returns of the comet, tied to particular moments in its long history. The comet itself may be far away when the display occurs, sometimes beyond the reach of even powerful telescopes, but its past remains close, marked clearly in the space Earth now travels through. This creates a relationship that does not depend on proximity. Earth and the comet are linked by repeated crossings, not by direct encounters. The light in the sky is not the comet arriving, it is the echo of where it has been. In this way, the night sky becomes a record of persistence. Objects that briefly appear, disappear, and return still leave lasting influence behind them. Their impact does not end when they fade from view. It continues each time Earth revisits the paths they carved through the solar system. Not all meteor encounters are fast and sharp. Some arrive with a different character, shaped by slower speeds and gentler entries. In these cases, the sky behaves differently. The light does not snap into existence and vanish instantly. Instead, it lingers, it glides. It invites the eye to follow rather than react. These slower meteors feel almost calm. Their motion is smoother, their presence less abrupt, as if the sky is allowing you time to notice. The difference comes from speed. When an object enters the atmosphere more slowly, energy is released over a longer path. The result is a softer streak, one that seems to drift rather than strike. The moment stretches just enough to feel intentional. This can change the mood of an entire night of observation. Even when activity increases, the sky feels less urgent, more contemplative. But this calm carries unpredictability. Some years bring almost nothing, while others surprise observers with sudden surges. The unevenness reflects the nature of the debris itself. The material is clumpy, shaped by how and when it was released, and by how gravity has tugged at it since. Earth does not meet a smooth river of particles. It meets pockets and gaps, regions of quiet followed by sudden concentration. This is why patience matters. A still sky does not mean the night is finished. The next encounter may already be seconds away, waiting for Earth to cross a slightly denser thread in the stream. And when it does, the light appears without warning, not loud, not lasting, but unmistakably present. Each of these moments carries the memory of an object that has passed before, a fragment of a journey that began long ago, completing itself above your head. The sky does not repeat itself exactly, but it does remember. And as Earth continues its motion, it keeps stepping into those memories, turning them briefly into light before moving on again. There are other encounters that unfold more slowly, not because they are weaker, but because they move differently through space. Their speed changes how the atmosphere responds and how the light reaches your eyes. Some meteors enter gently enough that their glow feels almost suspended. Instead of sharp lines, they leave drifting paths that seem to slide across the sky. These slower arrivals allow attention rather than surprise. You have time to follow the motion, to watch it trace a shape before it fades. The light lingers just long enough to register as movement, not interruption. The sky feels less like it is being struck and more like it is being brushed. Yet this softness does not mean predictability. Some nights remain quiet, offering only a few scattered streaks. Other nights change without warning. A sky that felt empty minutes before can suddenly come alive. This variability reflects the structure of the debris itself. The material is not spread evenly, but gathered into uneven clusters, shaped by past releases and gravitational drift. Earth moves steadily, but what it encounters changes from moment to moment. The difference between silence and activity can be measured in thousands of kilometers that pass unnoticed beneath your feet. Because the radiant of these meteors often rises early in the evening, they do not wait for midnight. They appear while the night is still young. This timing shifts the experience. Observation becomes something shared with evening rather than something reserved for the deepest hours of darkness. Each streak carries a quiet sense of continuity. It is not rushing to be seen, and it does not demand attention. It simply passes through, completing a path that was set long before this night began. Not all meteor streams behave this way. Some are broad, extended, and persistent, stretching their influence across weeks instead of hours. In these streams, activity never truly peaks. It simmers, rising and falling slowly, leaving room for long pauses. What defines them is not how many meteors appear, but how they appear. Slow, heavy-looking fireballs can emerge without warning. These moments feel different. The light does not flicker and vanish, but builds in steps, brightening as if the sky is adjusting its focus. A single event can illuminate the ground, briefly reshaping familiar surroundings. Shadows appear, then disappear, leaving the night unchanged but not forgotten. These meteors often fragment late. The flare arrives near the end, sudden and intense, like a flash that arrives just before the light is gone. This unpredictability creates tension. A quiet hour can still hold the possibility of something unmistakable. The sky becomes suspenseful. Stillness no longer means absence. Even when nothing is happening, something could happen at any moment. The atmosphere remains ready to respond. These broad streams remind us that motion does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits, allowing expectation to build. When a fireball finally appears, it feels earned. A reward for patience rather than persistence. And then it is over. The sky returns to its previous calm, carrying no sign that anything extraordinary has just passed through. But the memory remains. The light may vanish, but its impression stays behind. This is how these encounters shape attention. They teach you to keep watching, even when the sky seems empty. Because emptiness, in this case, is only motion you have not yet noticed. When many meteors belong to the same stream, their paths share a hidden order. They may appear across the entire sky, yet they are connected by direction rather than proximity. If you trace their streaks backward in your mind, they seem to converge toward a single region. This point is not a source, but a perspective. The particles are moving through space along nearly parallel paths. Your eyes project that motion onto a curved sky, where parallel lines appear to meet in the distance. It is the same effect that makes straight roads narrow and join at the horizon. The sky follows the same rules of perception. This apparent meeting point gives structure to what would otherwise feel random. It allows observers to recognize that scattered flashes belong to the same flow. That flow has direction. It shows which way Earth is moving into the stream. Meteors appear to arrive from ahead rather than from behind. They meet the atmosphere as Earth moves forward along its orbit. This explains why some streaks look short and abrupt. When a meteor approaches more directly, less of its path is visible from the side. Farther from that point, the same kind of meteor can draw a long line. The difference is not in the object, but in how you are positioned within its motion. Once this becomes clear, the sky gains depth. The display stops feeling flat and begins to feel three-dimensional. You are no longer watching isolated events. You are watching a flow that you are moving through. This realization changes how attention works. Instead of waiting for flashes, you begin to notice patterns. The sky becomes less about surprise and more about orientation. You start to sense direction even when nothing is happening. But perception has limits. A meteor gives your brain almost no time to measure distance, speed, or angle. In that instant, your mind fills gaps using context. The surrounding landscape quietly interferes. Near the horizon, these effects grow stronger. Trees, buildings, and slopes distort angles that are already difficult to judge. The sky itself is curved, but your mind often treats it as flat. When a streak crosses that illusion, it can appear bent or uneven. Fragmentation adds to the confusion. A piece breaking away can make a straight path seem kinked or curved. Memory then takes over. By the time you describe what you saw, the event is already gone. Your brain reconstructs the motion from fragments of impression. In doing so, it may add shape that was never there. This is why two people can witness the same meteor and disagree. Not because either is wrong, but because perception is personal. Each observer stands inside a different frame of reference. The sky is shared, but experience is not identical. Understanding this does not weaken the moment, it sharpens it. You begin to notice not only the meteor, but your own response to it. The sky becomes a collaboration between motion and mind. And within that collaboration, even uncertainty becomes part of the experience. The briefness makes attention more honest. Nothing lasts long enough to be fully captured. Everything must be accepted as it passes. Because meteors glow so high in the atmosphere, a single event can belong to many skies at once. What feels local is often shared across great distance. One person may see the light low in the north, skimming the horizon. Another may watch the same streak pass directly overhead. From somewhere else, it may seem to fall steeply, almost straight down. These differences do not mean there were multiple meteors. They come from viewing angle, not from separate events. The same path in space is being projected onto different domes of sky. This is why bright fireballs generate so many reports. Within minutes, people far apart begin describing what they saw. The details may not match at first. Directions differ, heights change, and lengths feel inconsistent. But when those accounts are placed together, a clearer picture begins to form. The contradictions dissolve into geometry. A meteor that appeared to skim the horizon from one town may have passed high above another. The true path lies between those perspectives. In this way, a fleeting streak becomes something measurable. Light turns into information. When two observers note time and direction carefully, their separate views become tools. Their lines of sight intersect in space. From that intersection, height can be estimated. With accurate timing, speed can also be inferred. This is not guesswork. It is simple geometry applied to the sky. Even basic observations matter. A phone's timestamp, a remembered star position, a short video clip. Together, they allow a path to be reconstructed long after the light has faded. The moment does not vanish completely. This approach makes meteor science unusually accessible. You do not need to travel anywhere to participate. You stand still while space comes to you. The atmosphere does the work of revealing what arrives. Each report becomes a small piece of a larger picture. Each observer contributes a point of reference. What feels like a private moment turns into shared data. The sky connects strangers without asking permission. There is something quiet and remarkable in that. A single streak links distant places through a shared experience. People who never think about astronomy find themselves comparing notes. Memory becomes a bridge. The event interrupts ordinary routines. For a brief time, attention shifts upward. And when the sky returns to calm, something remains changed. Awareness lingers. The light is gone, but the sense of connection stays. The moment becomes part of a larger pattern. This is how brief events gain meaning. They pass quickly, but they do not disappear. They are folded into understanding. A flash becomes a trajectory, and the sky, which seems silent, reveals itself as something constantly in motion. As attention lingers on the sky, another layer of the experience quietly unfolds. Not everything a meteor creates is gone when the light fades. High above, where the air is thin and unfamiliar, the passage of a meteor leaves behind a subtle trace. It is not debris falling downward, but air itself changed by the encounter. Along the meteor's path, molecules are disturbed, heated, and briefly ionized. Electrons are knocked free, creating a narrow trail of charged particles suspended in the upper atmosphere. For a moment, that trail glows on its own, faint, delicate, and easily missed unless you know to look for it. Sometimes this glow lasts only seconds. Other times it persists for minutes, slowly reshaped by winds that never touch the ground. These lingering trails twist and bend as they drift. They stretch, curl, and thin, revealing motion in regions of the atmosphere that are normally invisible. Watching this slow transformation feels different from watching the meteor itself. The sudden has passed, replaced by gradual change. The sky becomes a canvas of motion rather than light. You are no longer witnessing an impact, but a response. These high-altitude winds move independently of weather below. Calm air at the surface says nothing about what is happening far above. In this way, a meteor briefly exposes layers of Earth that remain hidden most of the time. It turns the atmosphere inside out for anyone patient enough to notice. Eventually, the trail fades completely. The air settles back into its usual state, leaving no sign it was ever disturbed. But even after the glow is gone, the meteor's influence may continue. Some of what was released does not disappear at all. As meteors erode, they shed atoms into the upper atmosphere. Iron, magnesium, sodium, and other elements are released in microscopic quantities. These atoms can remain suspended at extreme altitudes. Under the right conditions, they become seeds for something unexpected. Around them, tiny ice crystals can form. Slowly, delicately, structures begin to assemble far above the reach of weather systems. Much later, sometimes days after the meteor itself, these structures reveal themselves. They appear as faint electric blue clouds glowing against twilight. These are among the highest clouds Earth can form. They exist only because material from space helped create them. A fleeting streak of light contributes to something slow and persistent. A moment becomes a process. This quiet connection is easy to overlook. The meteor feels brief, while the cloud feels separate. But they are linked by cause, not timing. One makes the other possible. In this way, meteors participate in Earth's atmosphere long after they vanish from sight. They leave more than memory behind. They alter chemistry, structure, and behavior at the edge of space. The planet absorbs them, not as objects, but as influence. There are other effects as well, ones that cannot be seen at all, effects that pass through you without announcing themselves. As a meteor tears through the upper atmosphere, its ionized trail can interact with radio waves. For a short time, the sky behaves differently. That narrow column of charged particles can reflect certain frequencies. Signals that would normally vanish beyond the horizon suddenly find a path. For fractions of a second, sometimes longer, distant locations become connected. A message travels farther than it should. This phenomenon is quiet and precise. It does not require bright meteors or visible light. Radio operators have learned to wait for it. They aim signals upward and listen, knowing that somewhere above, a meteor may briefly open a door. When it happens, the window is small. Trails break apart quickly, forcing communication into rapid bursts. During periods of increased meteor activity, these windows appear more often. The sky becomes momentarily cooperative. Even meteors you never see can shape this process. Light is not required for influence. This is a reminder that human senses capture only a fraction of what is happening. The atmosphere responds whether or not eyes are watching. There are even times when sound seems to break the rules. Moments when a meteor appears silent, yet something is heard. Some observers describe faint crackles or hisses arriving at the same instant as a bright meteor. This should not be possible. Sound travels slowly. From such heights, it should arrive seconds or minutes later, if at all. And yet, reports persist. They come from different eras, cultures, and locations. One explanation does not involve sound traveling from the sky. Instead, it involves energy arriving instantly. As meteors ionize the air, they can generate electromagnetic waves. These waves move at the speed of light. When they reach the ground, nearby objects may respond. Thin materials can vibrate, converting energy into audible sound. Dry leaves, hair, grass, metal frames, even eyeglasses are often mentioned. The sound does not come from above. It comes from where the observer stands. The environment itself becomes the speaker. This effect is rare and difficult to confirm, but its possibility expands how meteors are understood. They may briefly change not just the sky, but the invisible energy around you. They pass through layers you cannot see, touching systems you do not feel. And then they are gone, leaving no trace that could be pointed to with certainty. What remains is the sense that the atmosphere is more alive than it appears, that it responds in ways we are still learning to notice. Meteors reveal this not by staying, but by passing through. Their value lies in motion, not presence. They are messengers that do not linger, signals without signatures. And as Earth continues its steady path, more of them arrive, quietly, constantly, reshaping the space just above your head. Even when nothing is visible, the sky remains active. Much of what arrives from space does so quietly, without light strong enough to reach human eyes. To see this hidden activity, different senses are required. Instruments listen where vision fails. Radar systems, for example, can detect meteors at any time of day. They do not rely on darkness or clear skies. When a radar signal encounters an ionized trail left behind by a meteor, part of that signal is reflected back. The return reveals that something has just passed through the atmosphere. This allows scientists to observe meteors even in broad daylight. It also reveals how constant this process truly is. The sky is never empty. It is only sometimes visible. Radar data shows that Earth is collecting material from space around the clock. Not just during famous showers, but continuously. Tiny particles arrive from every direction. Most dissolve without spectacle, leaving only brief signatures in the upper air. These detections reveal patterns invisible to the eye. Daily rates, seasonal changes, and subtle shifts over time become clear. Some meteor showers are strongest when no one can see them. Their peaks occur under a bright sky, hidden by sunlight. One of the most powerful annual streams arrives during daytime hours. Its activity is masked completely by the sun's glare. To the eye, the sky looks ordinary, but radar and radio tell a different story. They reveal a high rate of incoming particles streaking through the upper atmosphere unnoticed. The shower is real, even if invisible. This reminds us that meteor activity is not arranged for observation. It follows geometry, not convenience. Earth intersects debris streams according to orbital timing. Day or night makes no difference to the particles. Without instruments, entire events would pass without acknowledgement. With them, the atmosphere becomes readable. In this way, technology extends perception rather than replacing it. It allows awareness to reach where senses cannot. It also shows that well-known showers are only part of a larger picture. Background activity never stops. Between named streams, sporadic meteors continue to arrive. They come from old debris, broken fragments, and distant collisions. Some are remnants of ancient comets. Others originate from asteroids slowly shedding material over time. These particles form a constant drizzle rather than a storm. Their presence is subtle but persistent. Radar observations reveal their speeds and directions. Patterns emerge from what once seemed random. Over time, these measurements build a map of near-Earth space, a map drawn not with objects, but with motion. They show how gravity shapes debris long after its release, how streams spread thin and bend under planetary influence. Some structures remain narrow and well-defined, others disperse into wide, faint bands. Occasionally, Earth encounters a denser filament hidden inside a broader stream. When this happens, meteor rates can spike suddenly. An otherwise quiet night can erupt with activity, then, just as quickly, return to calm. These bursts are not changes in the sky's mood. They are changes in where Earth happens to be. A small shift in position can mean the difference between silence and abundance. The sky itself remains unchanged. This sensitivity makes prediction challenging. Tiny uncertainties in orbital paths can matter. Observers may witness unexpected clusters even during familiar showers. The experience feels surprising, but the cause is structural. Each burst marks a crossing of material released long ago. The debris remembers where it came from. In rare cases, this structure produces something extraordinary: a meteor storm. During these events, streaks arrive so frequently that the sky seems continuously alive. Motion replaces stillness. Historical records describe nights filled with light. Everywhere one looked, another meteor appeared. These storms are brief and uncommon. They depend on Earth intersecting especially dense filaments. The timing must be exact, the alignment precise. When it happens, the result is unforgettable, a reminder that space can feel crowded. Between these rare moments, the sky returns to its usual restraint. Activity becomes subtle again. But the structure remains, the filaments persist. Earth will encounter them again, perhaps years or decades later. The sky keeps its schedule patiently. Nothing is wasted, no release is forgotten. The atmosphere records these crossings in data and light. Each encounter adds to understanding. Meteors that never reach the ground still leave evidence behind. They announce themselves to instruments, if not to eyes. And through those records, the invisible becomes traceable. Motion becomes history. The sky above you is not just a backdrop. It is a dynamic boundary, constantly negotiated. Each passing particle participates in that exchange. Each arrival reshapes the region just above Earth. Most do so quietly, but all of them belong. While instruments reveal what the eye cannot see, the human experience of meteors remains rooted in perception. What you notice in the sky is shaped as much by your mind as by the light itself. A meteor appears without warning and disappears before your thoughts can fully catch up. In that brief interval, your brain is forced to work quickly, filling in gaps with expectation and memory. Distance is guessed, not measured. Speed is felt, not calculated. This is why meteors can feel closer than they are. A flash high above the atmosphere can seem as if it passed just beyond the treetops. Brightness tricks the senses. Light feels near even when its source is far away. The sky offers few fixed references, especially at night. Without familiar distances, the mind borrows cues from the landscape below. The horizon is where perception becomes least reliable. Buildings, hills, and trees bend angles that were already difficult to judge. A straight path across the dome of the sky can appear curved when it crosses that distorted region. The illusion is subtle but convincing. Fragmentation adds another layer of confusion. When a meteor breaks apart, its light can jump or flare. Your eyes try to follow each piece. In doing so, the original path becomes blurred in memory. Later, when you recall the event, the motion may seem uneven or bent. The reconstruction feels real because it is sincere. Two people standing side by side can describe the same meteor differently. Their brains prioritize different details. Neither account is false. They are simply incomplete in different ways. This is not a flaw in perception, it is the cost of speed. The sky does not slow down for understanding, it moves at its own pace. Learning this changes how the experience feels. You stop trying to capture the meteor exactly. Instead, you let it pass. You accept uncertainty as part of the moment. This acceptance deepens attention. The sky becomes less about certainty and more about presence. When you watch long enough, patterns emerge even through imperfection. You begin to sense direction rather than shape. You notice where activity seems to cluster. You feel when the sky is moving toward you rather than away. This intuition does not replace knowledge, it grows alongside it. Meteor observers often develop this quiet awareness. They cannot predict exactly when a streak will appear, but they sense when the sky is ready, when motion is likely. This feeling comes from repetition, from many nights of watching nothing happen. Stillness teaches patience. Silence becomes informative. You learn that the absence of light is not the absence of activity. It is simply motion beyond perception. This awareness changes how the night feels. Darkness becomes active rather than empty. Each quiet minute carries potential. Each glance upward is an invitation. The mind slows to match the sky's scale. Thoughts stretch out. Time feels different under a sky that may change at any moment. The tension becomes gentle. This is why meteor watching pairs naturally with reflection. The events are brief, but the waiting is long. The sky asks nothing of you except awareness. It does not reward effort, only presence. In that presence, something subtle happens. You begin to feel Earth's motion, not as speed, but as direction, as a sense of traveling through something rather than standing beneath it. The stars become less like fixed points and more like a backdrop. The real movement belongs to you. Earth is the one doing the crossing. The sky is revealing it. Each meteor confirms this. Each streak is evidence of motion you cannot otherwise feel. For a second, the planet's journey becomes visible. Then it disappears again. But the feeling remains. A quiet understanding that you are not still. You are moving through a space filled with traces of past journeys, through paths carved long before you notice them. The night sky does not perform, it simply responds. And if you are patient enough, it lets you notice. As understanding deepens, another truth becomes clear. Meteors are not visitors arriving for Earth alone. They are fragments of a much larger environment, one shaped long before our planet took its present form. Their paths intersect with Earth, but they do not belong to it. Some of these fragments carry histories older than the planet itself. They formed when the solar system was still assembling, when dust and rock were gathering around a young sun. While Earth has been constantly reshaped by heat, water, and motion, many of these pieces remained untouched. They drifted in cold, dry space, preserving their earlier structure. When a fragment survives its passage through the atmosphere and reaches the ground, it becomes something rare, a meteorite. These arrivals are quiet. After the light ends, the remaining piece slows and falls in darkness. It does not crash in fire. It lands gently, often unnoticed, sometimes far from where the sky first brightened. The surface may be darkened, briefly melted during entry, then stripped away. Inside, it remains cool. This surprises many people. A stone that fell from the sky is not usually hot to the touch. The heat that created the light was concentrated on the outside. The interior was protected by speed and loss. When recovered quickly, such a stone becomes a direct connection to space. No machine carried it here. It arrived on its own schedule, following rules set long before humans were watching. Some meteorites are older than Earth's oldest rocks. They contain minerals that have never melted since they formed. Scientists study these materials carefully. Their chemistry holds records of early conditions in the solar system. Ratios of isotopes reveal timing. Tiny variations tell stories of temperature, radiation, and formation. In laboratories, these stones speak quietly. They do not describe landscapes or events. They describe processes. Slow cooling, gentle collisions, patient accumulation. Some meteorites contain even older material, grains that did not form near our sun at all. Long before the solar system existed, other stars were shedding matter into space. Some of that dust cooled into solid crystals. Those crystals drifted between stars for ages. Eventually, they became part of the cloud that formed the sun and planets. Trapped inside growing asteroids, they survived processes that erased most early history elsewhere. They remained unchanged. These grains are microscopic. Finding them requires dissolving much of the surrounding rock. What remains is rare and precious. Proof carried in isotopes that match stellar processes. Each grain is a fossil, not of life, but of environment. Some formed in the winds of aging stars, others in violent stellar explosions. They survived creation, destruction, and rebirth. They outlived their parent stars. When such grains are found, time stretches. The meteorite becomes an archive of multiple eras. Part of it belongs to our solar system's beginning. Part of it predates the sun itself. This layering of history is what makes meteors profound. They compress vast timescales into brief encounters. A streak of light is the final act of a long story, one that began far from Earth. Even iron meteorites carry such memory. When cut and polished, they reveal internal patterns. These patterns form only through extremely slow cooling that takes millions of years. They show that the metal once belonged to a larger body, one large enough to hold heat patiently. On Earth, metal rarely cools this way. The pattern itself becomes a signature of space. It records time in structure rather than words. A visible timeline frozen in metal. Holding such a piece is holding duration, not motion, but endurance. The same material that once flowed slowly inside a distant body now rests quietly on Earth, its journey complete. Yet most meteors never reach this stage. Most end as light and vapor, but even those contribute. They add atoms to the atmosphere. They add information to records. They add context to understanding. Nothing arrives without consequence. Nothing passes without effect. The sky is not merely showing beauty. It is delivering material, history, and data. Every streak is a transaction, a small exchange between Earth and the wider system it moves through. And as the night continues, these exchanges do not pause. They continue quietly above. The visible and the invisible remain intertwined. Light and matter working together. What you see is only the surface. Beneath it lies continuity. A reminder that Earth is not separate from space. It is embedded within it, moving through it, shaped by it. Even after all this, the story is not finished. What meteors show us is not a single phenomenon, but a relationship that never truly ends. Earth moves through space continuously, and space responds continuously in return. The exchange is ongoing, quiet, and mostly unseen. Every orbit intersects with something left behind. Every year repeats encounters that are old, yet never exactly the same. The sky above is not a stage where events happen once and vanish forever. It is a crossing point, visited again and again by memory and motion. Meteors make that crossing visible. They turn invisible paths into brief lines of light. Without them, the atmosphere would still be interacting with space, but we would not notice. With them, we are allowed to glimpse the process. This glimpse is fleeting by design. The interaction is too fast, too high, too distant to linger. And yet, it is enough to hint at scale. The scale is not only physical, but temporal. A few seconds of light represent journeys lasting millions of years. Material that wandered silently through cold space suddenly meets resistance. Speed becomes heat, motion becomes glow, then it ends. Not because the journey failed, but because it reached its final form. The atmosphere absorbs the encounter, Earth incorporates the result. Some of that material drifts for days at high altitude, some settles invisibly into the planet's chemistry. Some becomes part of clouds that glow long after sunset. Some becomes data, captured by instruments rather than eyes. Each outcome is different, but none are accidental. They follow from motion and interaction. Nothing about meteors is ornamental. Even their beauty is a byproduct, not a purpose. They do not appear to entertain. They appear because paths intersect. The universe does not announce itself, it simply moves. Meteors are reminders of that movement, evidence that Earth is not stationary, even when it feels still. When you stand outside at night, you are not beneath a ceiling, you are inside a flow. Stars provide a backdrop, but the real action belongs to what crosses between them, what moves relative to you. The sky does not revolve around Earth. Earth moves through the sky. Meteors briefly reverse that illusion. They make Earth's motion visible instead of hidden. They show direction. They show encounter. They show that space near Earth is not empty. It is structured, layered, and shaped by long histories. Every streak implies a source, even if that source is no longer nearby. Every flash is tied to repetition. The same dates return, the same paths are crossed. But the exact particles never repeat. Each one is unique. Once a meteor appears, it is gone forever. That exact interaction will never happen again. This makes watching the sky an exercise in impermanence, attention without possession. You cannot keep a meteor. You cannot replay it. You can only witness it and then let it pass. This is not loss, it is design. The sky offers moments, not objects, experiences, not artifacts. Even meteorites, rare as they are exceptions. Most encounters remain intangible. They live briefly in light, then persist only as influence. Understanding this changes how the night feels. The sky becomes active even in stillness. Silence stops feeling empty. Darkness stops feeling inert. Every second carries potential interaction. Every moment belongs to motion. And yet, the sky does not demand attention. It continues whether or not you are watching. This is what makes the act of looking meaningful. It is voluntary, not required. You choose to notice. The universe does not insist. For now, the paths remain overhead, quiet, patient, unchanged by observation. Earth continues forward, the crossings continue, and before the conclusion arrives, there is still space to remain here, inside the motion, inside the waiting. The story is not ending yet, it is only preparing to rest. Staying with this motion for a little longer changes how stillness feels. The longer you listen, the more the absence of light begins to speak. Most of the sky's activity does not announce itself. It unfolds quietly, without spectacle, beyond the limits of attention. This is true not only for meteors, but for nearly everything happening above the atmosphere. Orbits continue, particles drift, paths intersect. Nothing pauses when the sky looks calm. Calm is simply motion that does not intersect with your senses at that moment. Learning this reshapes expectation. You stop waiting for the sky to perform. Instead, you begin to notice that it is always already in progress. You are arriving late to something ongoing. The night becomes less about events and more about continuity. Light is no longer the only measure of activity. Silence becomes informative. Darkness becomes layered. Each moment without a meteor is not empty time. It is time between encounters. This awareness softens urgency. There is nothing to miss because nothing is scheduled for you alone. The sky does not keep appointments. It offers intersections. You happen to be present for some of them. Others pass unnoticed. Neither is more important than the other. Both belong to the same flow. When a meteor does appear, it no longer feels like a surprise. It feels like confirmation. Confirmation that the paths are real, that the movement you sensed without seeing was always there. This shifts how attention works. You stop scanning frantically and start observing gently. Eyes relax, breathing slows. You allow the sky to come to you rather than chasing it. And in doing so, you notice more. Not necessarily more meteors, but more presence, more patience. The mind stops racing ahead. It settles into the pace of the night. Thoughts stretch out. Time loosens its grip. In this state, even a single streak is enough. It does not need to be followed by another. The moment completes itself. Nothing is lacking. This is why meteor watching often feels meditative, not because of what happens, but because of how long you wait. Waiting becomes part of the experience. Stillness becomes active participation. You are not idle, you are aligned. Aligned with Earth's motion, even if you cannot feel it directly. Aligned with paths that cross regardless of awareness. The planet moves beneath your feet without vibration. The sky absorbs impacts without sound. Only light leaks through now and then, offering reassurance that the exchange is real. That reassurance does not need repetition. One confirmation can last a long time, long enough to change how you look upward, even when nothing appears. Long enough to follow you back indoors. The sky does not end at the horizon. It continues through ceilings and walls. Even when you stop watching, the crossings continue. Even when you sleep, motion persists. Meteors do not wait for witnesses. They arrive because paths intersect, not because eyes are open. Knowing this removes pressure. You do not have to see everything. You are part of the system whether you observe it or not. Awareness is optional, not required. This makes observation feel generous rather than urgent, a gift, not a task. The sky allows you to look in, but does not demand that you stay. And when you do stay, it does not overwhelm. It offers small, precise moments. Moments scale to human attention. Moments brief enough to respect your limits. In this way, meteors act like punctuation rather than sentences. They mark pauses rather than explanations. They give shape to silence without filling it. They underline motion without describing it. The meaning comes later, if it comes at all. Often it does not need to. Sometimes noticing is enough. Sometimes knowing that something passed through is sufficient. The night does not ask for interpretation. It accepts attention as it is. And in that acceptance, the sky becomes less distant. Not closer in space, but closer in experience. You are no longer watching from below. You are participating from within. Still moving, still crossing. The flow continues, whether or not it is named, whether or not it is remembered. And for now, there is no need to resolve it, no need to conclude. There is still time to remain here, inside the motion, inside the quiet. The sky has not finished yet. Eventually, there comes a moment when watching turns into resting. The sky does not change, but your relationship to it does. You stop waiting for something to happen. You realize that something has been happening the entire time.
The crossings above you continue whether or not you remain outside.
The paths do not close when you look away. This understanding brings a quiet relief. There is nothing you need to catch, nothing you need to stay awake for. The universe is not withholding anything. It simply moves at its own scale. Meteors helped make that scale visible. They offered brief confirmations, not explanations. They did not tell a story from beginning to end. They showed you that stories are already in motion. What you witnessed was not an event isolated in time. It was a point along a long continuity. A fragment met resistance. Energy changed form. Motion became light. Then the light vanished, not because the interaction failed, but because it was complete. Completion does not always look like arrival. Sometimes it looks like disappearance. The atmosphere absorbed what came to it. Earth continued forward without pause. Nothing dramatic followed, and nothing needed to. The system returned to its quiet balance. This is how most exchanges in the universe resolve, without ceremony. Understanding this does not make the night feel smaller, it makes it more honest. Grandeur does not require constant spectacle, it only requires persistence. The sky does not need to impress you, it does not need to repeat itself. It offers moments when paths cross, then lets them go, just as it lets you go. When you turn away from the sky, it does not close behind you. It remains open. Even indoors, even asleep, Earth continues its journey. The crossings continue above unseen. Meteors will still arrive. Trails will still form and fade. Some will be recorded by instruments, most will not. Neither outcome matters more than the other. Both belong to the same process.
This is what it means to live on a moving planet.
Participation without effort. You are carried through structures you cannot see. You intersect with histories you did not create. Occasionally, the sky allows you to notice. It does so briefly, without demand. That permission is enough. It does not need to be constant. What stays with you afterward is not the image of a streak, but a shift in scale. A sense that stillness is relative, that quiet does not mean empty. The night no longer feels like a backdrop. It feels like a medium, something you move through rather than stand beneath. This changes how you rest. Sleep feels less like stopping and more like drifting. Even as consciousness fades, motion continues. Safely, predictably, without concern. The planet knows where it is going. The paths above know where they lead. You do not need to follow them. You only needed to notice once. That noticing was enough to alter perspective, enough to soften urgency, enough to remind you that existence does not require constant awareness to continue. The sky does not need witnesses to be real, but when witnessed, it offers meaning. Not imposed meaning, not explanation, just context. A reminder that you are part of something extended, something patient, something that does not rush, even when it moves fast. Now there is nothing left to observe, and nothing left unfinished. The motion continues without commentary. The night settles back into itself. You are free to rest, free to look away. The paths remain overhead, quiet, persistent, and Earth carries you forward through them, gently, without asking. That is all that was ever happening.